Dzień dobry. Dzisiaj naszym specjalnym gościem jest ambasador Stanów Zjednoczonych w Polsce, pan Mark Brzeziński. Bardzo dziękuję za to, że znalazł pan czas. Thank you for having time for our interview.
Oczywiście, Piotr, witamy. Witamy serdecznie, to jest dla mnie ogromny zaszczyt.
So, Mr. Ambassador, what will the President Duda and Prime Minister Tusk will hear from the President Biden in office in 12th of March?
Well, I could not be more excited about this exceptional, important event happening this coming Tuesday when President Biden will host in the Oval Office Prime Minister Tusk and President Duda. And the topics are what you would expect. It's about a celebration of a risk that was taken 25 years ago, the expansion of NATO to bring in new states from the post-communist region to advance our collective security. And that risk has been shown to be worth taking. And I want to emphasize that in 1999, then Senator Joe Biden was asked by the Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee at the time, Jesse Helms, to be the floor manager to get the bill passed and ratified by the U.S. Senate. That was Joe Biden who spearheaded the legislation to expand NATO, to bring Poland into NATO. So President Biden has been personally involved in the expansion of NATO, in the protection of Poland, for years and years. And Tuesday will first and foremost be a celebration that collective defense works. Piotr, that collective defense works. We will also talk about the uniquely important energy partnership between America and Poland. Poland is building a civil nuclear power program to power the future of the young generation. It will be about democracy and the rule of law. What happened in Poland in October was a civic mobilization of the Polish people that democracies around the world saw, and that was an incredible endorsement of democracy. And of course, we'll talk about the business-to-business relationship. Business between America and Poland is growing, and I think we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg. More business is on the way. It's an important keel in the American-Polish relationship. But there is no more valuable space or real estate on the U.S. president's schedule than I think in March 2024, and Poland got that slot. Congratulations, President Duda and Prime Minister Tusk.
Is it true that thanks to your personal involvement, this kind of visit is it possible? President and Prime Minister from one country at the same time in White House?
This is a product of President Biden's leadership. President Biden believes in advancing a unity of purpose and a shared definition of the challenge, regardless of politics. People with principle will disagree, Piotr, but some things are above politics. Security, Ukraine, the future of NATO, those are paramount. That's what President Biden is advancing. I'm so proud to be the personal representative of President Joe Biden in Poland in 2024.
So many topics will be discussed in White House during this visit, not only about the national security from the U.S. and Poland perspective, but also about the business. Can we say something more about it? It's like we can expect like more contracts or more new information about the possible American investments in Poland in the near future?
Sure, Piotr, and we can talk about that, but I think that what you're getting at is something larger, and that is, why is this happening? Why Poland? Why in March 2024? Because in the last 2 years, Poland has done something extraordinarily special, and President Biden wants to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Dziękuję, dziękuję, dziękuję to the Polish people. For what? For this. When the Ukraine crisis broke out, when Russia viciously attacked Ukraine, the Ukrainian people had to run. They had to flee. And they were able to run into the arms of angels, the arms of Polish people who went to Medyka border crossing, who went to the Korczowa border crossing at 2 a.m. to take a Ukrainian family to Białystok or Bydgoszcz or Wrocław or Poznan. That is extraordinary. So yes, we can talk about the business-to-business relationship, but in certain ways, the Polish people have introduced themselves to the world as a humanitarian superpower. And that is something that the White House is celebrating this coming Tuesday. I have spoken directly, personally, with Joe Biden. And he goes, Mark, that is so inspiring what the Polish people have done. Collateral to that, of course, is the business-to-business relationship. Intel's investment, Westinghouse Bechtel, Amazon, 3M. These are all remarkable transformational investments in Poland.
As you know, in Poland, in the whole Central Eastern Europe region, we feel very big fear about the possible Russian invasion or hybrid war from the Kremlin side. That, to be clear, that the NATO, especially US, will protect every centimeter of the NATO area, including Poland, Baltic states, and we don't need to, thinking about the changing of this US policy, because as you know now in Poland, especially during the presidential campaign, some of the politicians say maybe we need to think about the Article 5 of the NATO 30.
Piotr, President Biden has been clear. NATO will protect every square inch of NATO territory, including Poland. The NATO Secretary General said NATO is prepared to protect every square centimeter, colloquially speaking, of NATO. I always say, Polska jest bezpieczna I Polska jest zabezpieczona. Poland is safe and Poland is secure. We have around 10,000 American soldiers in Poland today. Earlier this week, I was up close to Gdańsk for the Defender, the Dragon exercise, which involves 90,000 soldiers across NATO territory, and that extends to the United States to show that in case of a quick need, NATO can react and respond and deploy completely and totally to protect every square inch of its territory. So I am certain of the resolve. I am certain of the professionalism and the expertise of our military and those who advance security between America and Poland, that Poland is safe and secure.
If you talk about the military presence of the US in Poland, that we can expect like more US soldiers, US troops in Poland in the next months, in the next year, more military contracts? Maybe do you know something about it?
The relationship between America and Poland and NATO and Poland is designed to respond to the threat and to the possibility of anything dangerous happening. That conversation is continuous, and there are tactical movements that adjust to address any potential. I can tell you, Piotr, that Polish military, US military, NATO military, every single day engage in contingency planning to think through any and every possibility of any threat against Poland. And I cannot think of a possibility that has not been covered and deployed to protect against.
If you talk about the shift of government in Poland, as we know from the December, we have the new government coalition in Poland. And what about the Polish-American relation? Do you see some changes in this? This communication is better between the Warsaw and Washington, or main core of this relationship hasn't changed?
I think the fact that your president and prime minister together, while politically and ideologically different, are going together to the Oval Office speaks to what the American-Polish relationship is about. It is about strategic shared interests. It is not about politics, right or left. It is about what are challenges we share and how can we collectively address them. Secretary of State Tony Blinken, my boss, put it 2 weeks ago when he was meeting with the Polish Foreign Minister, Radek Sikorski. The American-Polish relationship has never been stronger, in his opinion. And I could not agree more. This relationship is not just a photo op. This relationship is not just about symbols. We are meshed together in terms of security, in terms of humanitarian support, in terms of energy, in terms of business to business, in terms of democratic renewal. It is an intensively, closely integrated relationship.
As we know, your father was the former national security advisor in the Jimmy Carter administration. What do you think that what your father could say today see what Vladimir Putin did in Europe, did with Ukraine, and threat, basically whole Western world.
Zbigniew Brzezinski is, I think, looking down on this conversation I'm having with Piotr right now, and I think he is smiling. He is smiling because he is incredibly proud of Joe Biden. Joe Biden has led a 50-plus country coalition to support the people of Ukraine, and they are doing better than I think anyone expected at the outbreak of this conflict. And the fact that President Biden is hosting on Tuesday to celebrate something that my father was intimately involved in, and that was the expansion of NATO in 1999, is something that would bring a tear to his eye. Because finally, Piotr, finally the war is over. You have to remember, after World War II, when people were dancing in the streets in London, Poland was falling behind the Iron Curtain. Poland was not safe and secure. Instead, Poland was occupied. And finally, in 1999, thanks to Bronisław Geremek, Madeleine Albright, Jan Nowak-Jezerański, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Poland was finally free, was finally safe, and was finally secure. And to me, as one of my father's sons, to fly from Warsaw to Rzeszów in a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter, or to go to Powice, or to go to Poznan to see the first permanent U.S. Army military facility, speaks to everything those leaders fought to get. And so when we do this interview today, and when we say Polska jest bezpieczna I Polska jest zabezpieczona, that's not just for this moment. It's because people worked their tails off for decades to make that happen.
One additional thing, because we discussed in a very special moment, because just one day after Sweden became the full member of the NATO,
yes,
and just before, like few months before the NATO summit, in like anniversary summit in Washington. So, what is the U.S. agenda for NATO for this few months, for this year, especially before the NATO summit, and including Sweden officially as a NATO member?
Well, let me say something about Sweden. I had the unbelievable privilege to serve as the United States ambassador to Sweden for 4 years under President Obama. I am so proud of my friends, the Swedes, who I remain super close with, and who will bring an expertise and understanding to NATO that will benefit the NATO alliance. I am so unbelievably happy with them. I was emailing last night with the current U.S. ambassador to Sweden, Eric Ramanathan, my good friend, and just congratulating him for his work and his leadership on helping Sweden advance the protocols to join NATO. It will be such a gain for the NATO alliance and important for Poland's security, because that northern Baltic area now is that much more secure that with Sweden now as a member of NATO. And my gosh, Putin must be just unable to sleep at night, because if there was anything I'm sure he was not planning for, if there was anything I'm sure he was hoping would not happen, it would be Finland and Sweden joining NATO. And what, as President Biden has put it, Putin was expecting the Finlandization of NATO. What he got was the NATOization of Finland and Sweden.
Putin is
so
the best sales advisors of NATO, right? Because after this tragic events in Ukraine, more countries became the member, right?
Well, I say this with a tear in my eye, because there have been so many victims to Putin's attack in Ukraine. So many absolutely defenseless victims who have been traumatized and killed or hurt or raped or forced to leave the country because of Putin's gross attack against Ukraine. But I'm certain Putin did not attack Ukraine to get Sweden and Finland to join NATO. And yet he did it. And so, frankly, just desserts, as we say.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for your time. Thank you for this interview.
Thank you, Piotr. Yes.
And we discussed today in the International Women's Day, maybe some few greetings or wishes.
Well, I wanted to end on that note. We are only as strong as the empowerment and the inclusion of all of our populations. America has a lot of work to do to advance women's empowerment, and so does Poland. And yet all of us are changing in a positive direction. And I'll be hosting in this home tonight, International Women's Day, and I can't wait to celebrate the women of Poland who are change agents like none other here. We're so proud of you. Jestem z ciebie dumny.
Thank you very much. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you. Dziękuję.